Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, please go and leave a 5-star review. Here is a wonderful review from Sunshine Saul. The review says, very entertaining. Chrissie is easygoing, funny, and open-minded. I think that's intentionally spelled wrong. Great variety of guests with diverse opinions. Never a boring episode. Long live Iggy. Yes. Iggy is my turtle that almost died. He had a tortoise coma like a month or so ago. Had to be rushed to the emergency room. But by some miracle, he is not dead. And I'm so happy I did not pay $120 for him to be euthanized. Guys, a lot of show dates coming up. I'm going to be, if you're in Pennsylvania, I'm going to be with Comedians of the Compound this Friday in Royersford, Pennsylvania. And then on Sunday, I'm going to be at the Stress Factory in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I'll be headlining that show. And then March 20th, Comedians of the Compound is going to be coming to Tiff's Ale House, aka the Dojo of Comedy, or the Dojo East. Check that out. And then I'm coming to Florida April 30th. I'll be at the Lake Park Black Box Theater in Palm Beach, Florida. May 1st, the Boca Black Box Theater in Boca Raton, Florida. Both those dates will be with my buddy Tim Young. More dates coming up. I'm going to be coming back to Texas. Before that, actually, May 2nd, I'll be at Side Splitters in Tampa. May 7th and 8th, the Skyline Comedy Club in Appleton, Wisconsin. May 9th, Oklahoma City. That's the Bricktown Comedy Club. Then I'll be in Austin with the Comedians of the Compound. May 14th and 15th, Zanies in Nashville on May 18th. Stand Up Live in Huntsville, Alabama on May 19th. And then I'll be coming to Hilarities in Cleveland on Thursday, June 6th. So many dates. All of these tickets, June 3rd. I mean 3rd. It's been a long week. June 3rd. All of these ticket links can be found on my website, ChrissieMayr.com. So check those out, guys. Would love to see you at a show sometime soon. And if I haven't mentioned a club that you love or a city that you live in, and I'm not going to be close to you, just tweet at me. Let me know. Tweet at your favorite clubs. Let them know that, you want me and I want you. Speaking of which, this episode is brought to you by Adam and Eve. Guys, it's time to shake it up a little bit. You know what I mean? You got to break out of this quarantine funk, this lockdown funk. Go to adamandeve.com. They are the #1 adult toy superstore. Yes, you can get a womanizer, but you don't have to go all the way. You know what I mean? You don't have to get a sex toy. You can get some cool, lingerie, candles, lubes, oils, we're not all butt plug people, okay? But if you are, Adam and Eve's got your back, literally. Go to adamandeve.com, use the promo code CMP. You're going to get 20% off your entire order, plus free shipping. And this episode is also brought to you by cushydreams.com. They are the place to go to for quality CBD products. I've been using them for a few months now, and it's really kind of changed my whole world. I feel calmer. I used to be someone who would occasionally smoke weed, and I would kind of just go out to lunch. I would get too high. I would just I don't know, kind of lose the day. I would kind of be unproductive, honestly. And I found with CBD, I still get that kind of relaxation in my mind and in my body, but none of the getting high side effects. Cushy Dreams specialize in extraordinary CBD pre-roll joints and bud. It comes in tins, 100% guaranteed delivery. This product comes it's right from the USA, which is my favorite part. It's constantly lab tested for compliance. Join the men and women who are sick of their vapes, sick of their gummies, and want to smoke their CBD. They've got tons of different strains for whatever you're looking to do with your day. Different indica sativa blends like Energy, Hustle, Create, Dream, Peace. They've got you covered, guys. So go to cushydreams.com, use the promo code CMP. You're going to get 20% off your whole order plus free shipping. All right. Enough with that. I am so excited to have this guy on the podcast today. We tried to connect in Texas when I was there last week, but we were both just so gosh darn busy. So he's here for us today remotely. Yes, he is the lead singer, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong. The lead singer of BackWordz Music. He's the co-founder of Being Libertarian. He also hosts a channel on YouTube called For Canon's Sake. He also's got a show on the Blaze. You know him, you love him. Eric D. July, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Hopefully my camera isn't so choppy for your audience, because it's not choppy on my side, but sometimes this camera is acting stupid on Firefox. So I appreciate you having me on nonetheless.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. You're so purple today.
Oh yeah, kind of like, I don't know what that wasn't on purpose.
I like it. I like it so much.
Glad you like it.
I love your beautiful set. I've been trying to step up my podcasting game, so I definitely take note and admire when people have like either like amazing gear, or like I've started out like I have a plant now in my background, and I have a baby Yoda, and I have a porg behind him. Like
Nice.
The baby Yoda is like upstaging the porg. He's like, I'm
Nice.
the new cute animal. Eric, how are you? Did you lose power at all during the craziness there in Texas?
Yes, I did. It was on my side, it was rolling. So it was like I'd have it for like 30 minutes. I had power, and then for like an hour I wouldn't. And that kept up for a couple of days. And then after that, it was back to normal. So I think a lot of people misunderstood, definitely people from out of town. They thought we all were impacted like the same way, like everybody's power just went out, and it was like
the whole state, right?
Yeah, but I think people forget how big Texas is. But no, it wasn't like that for us at all. It was the inconvenience was the downstairs of my house. I live in a pretty large house, and it takes a while for that to kick in, the air conditioning. So yeah, downstairs was like I couldn't sleep there, so I was sleeping upstairs because it was freezing down there because
no,
couldn't stay on for long enough.
Yeah, a lot of people were huddling together in sort of asexual orgies, like just get under a blanket. And I kept seeing people were tagging me on these posts online, like, oh, Chrissie, like, because the power was out. Kind of similar. It sounds like similar deal to you. Is like, it puts your values into perspective when you're like, okay, I have a half hour of power, like it really helps you to focus on what's important.
Absolutely. No, that was like, I'm sitting here like, I got to do my video. I couldn't do my show, which sucked. I couldn't do my show, but I had my videos. I'm like, okay, power's on. You sprint upstairs and set the camera up and everything, record, try to get it uploaded. And then, so that was an experience, but that was pretty productive. I like to think.
Yeah, I'm like, there's no time to scroll on Instagram. There's no time to shop. Stop it. Get to it. Yeah, and people were tagging me in these posts like, why don't you just make a little heater out of candles? So tell me, God, there's so much I want to talk to you about. Tell me about how long have you been with the Blaze? Were you doing your YouTube channel first and they found you, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, it was one of those things where, because I've been in the content creation space for a very long time. For reference, I started my YouTube when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
I've been doing this for a while, but it wasn't like always the political stuff or anything. And I'd been doing Blaze like as just a guy that was coming on to shows, even back when Dana Loesch was there, before she had went to NRA TV, and now she's not there anymore. But so that was a while back. But I didn't come on officially until 2020 as like an actual, in terms of like a partnership with them, entering one. So it's been a wonderful experience, of course, because I was already familiar. We felt each other out and everything, and that was really what people know, considering where my politics are. I wouldn't have did this if I would have been in any sort of shackles or anything. And we get up there, we disagree, we do whatever, and everything's awesome. And I love just being a part of that team and just being able to, get the message, of liberty out there.
And what's the name of your Blaze show? I know that your YouTube is for Canon's sake.
Yeah, for Canon's sake is the YouTube.
Okay.
And that's the show, the daily show. My contribution to Blaze is I'm on everything. You know, obviously people know me most from doing news and why it matters with Sarah Gonzalez, but you know, I do everything on there. You know, I do, you know, just on Elijah Schaefer show. I
Yeah,
do,
he's great.
yeah, he's awesome. I do my obligations are to pretty much everything video regarding the Blaze, but most people see me on the news and why it matters throughout the week with Sarah Gonzalez. Yeah, my daily show though, which is for Canon's sake, which we stream it live on YouTube, and we'll be doing Odyssey once they roll out their live streaming platform. Excited for that.
Yeah, I love Sarah Gonzalez. I did the news and why like twice when I was there in Dallas. I was so thrilled. I didn't even think I would be able to, you know, it just really worked out. I was thrilled to do it once. I was like, yes, I'll come back. And I love it. She's just like, she just has down like the serious newswoman. Like she has that like perfect, like serious delivery, but like as soon as the camera's off, she's like, girl, let's drink more wine. Like she's just, she's so fun.
Yeah, she is. Sarah, I love her to death, man. She is certainly awesome. She's like, there's no better fit for that particular position on that show like than she is. She's just amazing.
And it's all, everything she says is improvised. Like I'm looking at the teleprompter, then I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, this is all her. This is great. Like I think a lot of reporter types kind of buckle under the pressure of having to improvise, but I really love it. And it seems it's that way for most of the shows. Like I did Chad's show and Elijah too. Like nobody's reading from a script. It comes across genuine.
There is no marching orders in the Blaze, and I know people look at, you know, Glenn obviously being the he created it, but everybody has the freedom over there, and that's kind of what makes it authentic, is that everybody's just each show for the most part. There is no script to it for the most part. Even if we go into it, and you probably noticed this with Sarah, we'll go into it with like okay, these are the topics of the day, and then you never know, that might go out the window during the show.
Yeah.
You know, just because that's just the nature of what it is that we do, because ultimately it's about having a sort of definitely if you have other people on the show, having a conversation more than anything, and it always comes off as authentic, because that's actually what it is. Like that's, you know, we're giving you our ideas, and a lot of people, I just know because of the industry, I know a lot of people they're not afforded that, you know, working with some of the bigger networks and stuff like that. They don't have those sorts of freedom. They can't. So just to put things into perspective for the audience, understand I'm an anarcho-capitalist. You know, I'm not a conservative. You know, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and they let me, I just say whatever. I say all kinds of foul stuff when I'm over there, and it's all good. Like it comes off as authentic, raw, and real, because that's exactly what it is.
I think the only is Michael Malice an anarcho-capitalist? I think I know
I know he doesn't really, he basically, but he kind of you know, I don't think he does the whole labels. I know Mike, you know, I did Tom Wood's show with him.
Yeah, I know. I've heard him say that he's an anarchist, but like I think I'm still learning like
he's
what
like
it all means.
Yeah, he's one of those that we for the most part believe if he were to have a label, it would be that. It seems to be the case, but I know for him, he's not one of those. He's just an anarchist. He didn't put like a label like guys like myself who are anarcho-capitalists. You know,
and anarcho-capitalism is basically like zero government. The market or capitalism like runs the whole show, determines.
Markets for regulation for every single thing. See, libertarianism, and I'm glad I could explain this, because people don't look at it on a scale, you know. So the way I usually word it is, all anarchists in that sense, in the modern sense, not necessarily in like the communistic sense or anything like that. I'm saying in the modern sense, in the West, or rather America, every anarchist like is a libertarian, but not all libertarians are anarchists. So you have like the minarchist libertarians who are believing like small government, you know, who believe in government should exist, but just for court systems, you know, stuff like that.
Post office.
Well, yeah, like just bare basic stuff. Whereas to guys like myself, we believe, okay, hey, the market is best suited for everything else. We believe in food and everything. Why would we make this sort of exception? Is sort of where the anarchism comes, but we're all libertarians nonetheless.
Now, did you have these beliefs at 16 when you first started your YouTube channel? And how did you grow to be this person?
Yeah, no, I grew up. I grew up more so certainly on the left. And it wasn't a
Me
secret.
too. Yeah.
But it was a journey. I remember being in college. I went to the University of Memphis right out of high school, and I was reading about like Black economists, and I come across the likes of Dr. Walter E. Williams, who recently passed, and well as Thomas Sowell, and it just completely just changed everything as far as what I believed. And when you go down that rabbit hole of economics, which is what so the subject, I think every libertarian has their like own like kind of subject matter that radicalized them in the sense that made them go full libertarian. For me, it was economics and understanding like the history of that, and more so the state and it's muddying up with the market, and even some of these instances or issues that were never really explained to me, even from the racial issues were sanctioned by the state, and looking at those sorts of ideas, it just completely changed everything. So once I went down that rabbit hole, learning about Austrian economics versus Chicago economics, and Sowell, Thomas Sowell and with Dr. Walter E. Williams turns into Rothbard. Well, it turns into like the Hayeks of the world, and then that turns into Rothbard. And
I'm just now like learning about all this stuff and like getting into it, like learning who Rothbard is, and it's like there's so much to learn. Like if you could pinpoint one thing that kind of, for me, I think, and I guess I am more wavering between like libertarianism and more conservatism now. It's hard to figure out what your new labels are, right? Like when I've kind of just like busted out of the left. For me, it was free speech that really like got me activated and like aggressively wanting to be, I don't hate using the word activist, but like giving a shit and showing up for issues. And for me, it was that. Was there any one particular issue for you that made you just sort of like angry enough, or like inspired you to?
Yeah, that's a good question, because like I even when I first became rather those first steps to being a libertarian, it was still kind of a slow crawl to being like as public as I was about it. And to be honest, like I was getting so incentivized to do it because I was in the metalcore and the hardcore scene with the not even the band that I'm in now, like the previous bands. You're talking about early 2010s, and just to see so many like it was the hypocrisy, and not only that, but to see so many people seem to not get it when it came to like versus the government, government versus like some of these social issues that they would claim to be about, and they would be advocating for things that were antithetical to one another. So I'm like, well, I know I'm not the only crazy. Am I the crazy one? That's the sort of thing that you start thinking. But seeing all of that and knowing that I was existing really behind enemy territory was really influential, and for me, aspiring to just get out there and just look, man, like there people need to hear this, and I'm in a space that they otherwise wouldn't even hear it, because that like, for example, that whole subculture, metalcore, hardcore was just dumb, and still is. Worse now, actually, dominated is just by what you consider, leftism. And I just had to say something, so I remember writing all those early songs on my previous band. And when I started BackWordz, that was the whole idea. We were just going to be open and full-blown libertarian. It wasn't even going to be a secret or anything. And it's inspiring, because being able to not just record the music, but touring and doing all of that, and it's for people to come back to you, whether it be after a show, whether it be in your direct messages or something, saying that okay, they never had heard that worded that way, or heard like this concept broke down like this until they heard it from us. But we were able to break that communicative ice, which is what I call it, where I was able to relate to people in a way that it didn't have really anything to do with politics per se. It was first about the music. You know what I mean? It was first about just making metalcore, hardcore music with whatever other genre elements that we wanted to make. And that resonated with that crowd. And then they started listening to what it was that we were saying. And then looking into myself, or looking into the other vocalist, Alex, and seeing some of our thoughts. And that in itself is inspiring as well for me, you know. So I always dug the challenge, and I was always stubborn, and that kind of helped me with my journey to just say, you know what, somebody's got to say it and somebody's got to do it.
That's what's kind of amazing about art, about the arts, like whether it's music for you or like comedy for me. Like if somebody, before somebody learns your politics, and you might not set out to change somebody's politics that day, or, you know, I mean, you always want to make people think, but like, I feel like, you know, your first impulse is like, yeah, I want to create. I just want to like put my art out there. But when someone's kind of like charmed by like you and whether it's your music or your comedy, it's like, oh, I like this. I just get the vibe of this person. This person has a good energy. And then you're like, oh, wait, like I know, I think of an example, like the first time I heard like Bryson Gray's music, I was like, wow, I had no idea there were conservative rappers, Christian rappers. Or it takes somebody being like, oh, well, I like Eric July, like in this. And then you know, read the lyrics or something and you're like, oh, well, he's about this. And then it's kind of, you kind of are in a position to sell somebody on a different idea or a different paradigm, because you've kind of like lured them in with your music or your personality or, you know, your jokes, I guess.
Yeah. That's 100% right.
I want to play a little bit of your music in case people are curious. This was very cool. I hope this is you.
yeah. No, that's us. That's us. That's our opening song right there.
This is not what at all what I pictured for you.
Most people don't, because I do rap on occasion, you know, so people more so expect that, but that's the bread and butter right there, that music, and you know, it's heavy.
This is good, like this is good working out music.
Oh yeah.
As a person who barely works out. But this is great. This is intense and I'm feeling it. And I don't normally listen to this kind of music, but I'm just like, ooh, hi.
Yeah, that was it'd be great. That was certainly one of my favorite songs to write. And we opened with that. Man, we haven't toured for a while because of stupid virus.
Yeah.
Rather the governments respond to it. But yeah, that song is we love to do it, and in our band, just, you know, with all the genres that we mix, this is more of a it's like kind of more hardcore than anything. But we do have very melodic songs. We've done covers. People have heard, you know, we kind of just for jokes, and it really ended up turning out to want to be one of our most viewed songs. Rather, was we covered NSYNC's "Bye Bye Bye."
Really? Wow.
Like a metalish cover. There's a music video out there for that too. And, you know, just to not only showcase what all we could do, but to kind of just get out of the box. We have a bunch of talented guys in this band, and that was what we set out to do first. I think the music influenced people, or rather kind of got people thinking, because it was good first. And this is what a lot of, you know, aspiring, like liberty-minded people are like, man, she broke out, did all this, sold all these records, you know, advice. And I'm like, first work on your craft. Like, I don't think y'all understand, like, it ain't even like me as a vocalist, like my band, the instrumentalists, those guys are like some of the best in the business, man. Like, those guys are incredible at what it is that they do. And that's what I'd always beat on, the craft first. And that was how it resonated with so many people, because we were fearless in how it was that we did our music, but more so the music itself was polished. It was good. And it was always produced very well and presented to the audience in the best possible way that we could do it.
How did you find these guys?
Yeah, so because I left my previous band back in, it was like I said, early 2010s. And I took a little break off of music for a while. And because I didn't really know that I was going to get back into it to this capacity. And I remember a guy that had produced some music for us, my previous band. So I was very familiar with him, and he hits me up, and I was cool with him. He hits me up. He says, "Hey man, I got this guy. His name's Kevin, still in the band, of course." And he's like, they're trying to come up with this new band, and it's basically tailor made for you. And the whole idea and the concept was that, yeah, you can rap, and we want to mix sort of those metalcore and those hardcore elements and do some rapping and R&B stuff kind of in it. And that's kind of how it started, though obviously if you're the album, it's not all like that. But yeah, when I heard that instrumental, I was like, holy crap. And it wasn't that song, but it was a song called Grindstone, which ended up being on the first release track. So I met most of them through again, who is currently our producer, Corey, who's still our producer to this day. And yeah, to be able to do that with him and get that out there and you know, we link up with those guys. It was like a no-brainer. It was a hand in glove fit. And with Alex, who was the other vocalist, the guy that does a lot of the clean vocalist stuff, he was living out there with me when I was because I was living in Corpus Christi at the time, of course, South Texas, and he was living out there. Man, we linked up, just phenomenal. He was in another band, just great singer all around and freedom-minded guy. And him and I are like the closest of friends now because that was the whole idea. So the band it could not work. It was like it was too tailor-made. Like it was a blessing in the sense that it almost was like freaky how all of us came together and we were all like-minded. But believe it or not, it wasn't even forced. It was just one of those things that, you know, Corey gave me that instrumental, which they had created, which was basically tailor-made for a guy like me, and it was off to the races. So
yeah, it's meant to be.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorite things about you is how you point out. I always love when people comment on like tokenism in Hollywood, because I feel like Hollywood and comedy industries are so close to one another, both very like left liberal dominated. But you recently pointed out the tokenism in comics. You're a big comics fan, and you ripped Marvel semi recently for saying for the like quote diversity BS. You called them a fucking joke, which I love, and most people would be, oh, well, you know, diversity is great. You know, well, how dare Eric, being a black guy, like say that diversity is wrong? And so I want to know, where does inclusion end? Where does diversity end and tokenism begin? How do people know the difference? And why does this upset you?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because a lot of folks who look at it from the outside and they see like come across my videos and then they start clutching their pearls and fainting on the couch and stuff because I dared to criticize their little cult of diversity and all of that. Look, I'm a comic guy through and through. People that know my YouTube and everything, they seen the videos that I do. It's like an encyclopedia up here because I actually read like these books. Like this is like what I do generally on my free time is read mountains upon mountains of these bad boys. And when I get to see, like we're starting to see more live action depictions of things. And when I sit here and see that characters have been completely changed for the sake of having a black version of that character or something like that, it's not only lazy and lousy, it's insulting. Because you consider for like the Marvel and the DCs of the world, the extensive amounts of material that they have, including original black characters that are not like white or black versions of the traditionally white character, right? And it's one of those things to see those guys go basically unnoticed, untouched, underdeveloped. And then you get like, oh, well, here's Black Spider-Man. Here's Miles Morales, who's everybody's favorite Spider-Man now. It's like, I don't want a black version of a character that I'm already familiar with. I want just an original character. And
that was a good movie, though. Like, I did like that sort of like cartoony
Spider-Verse.
Yeah. It was cool. I think it was well done. But
yeah, like the movie is, you know, it's okay for what it is, but you know, it's still one of those things to where Marvel puts all of this stock in that character who never really caught on the comic. It was almost a decade removed from when y'all saw him in Spider-Verse versus when he showed up in the comic books, because he didn't stick. Like nobody asked for that. Nobody wanted a black Peter Parker, which essentially all he is in the comic books. Anyway, and my thing is that there's a lot of creativity out there. There's a lot of even black artists and black writers, you know, who are great. I'm good friends with Kevin, who created a character called Blue Marvel for Marvel, who really goes basically untouched these days. And it's just so bizarre to see that. But you know, they eat it up. You know, that's the direction that Marvel is going in, and it's like doing it so forced to where it doesn't make sense. Like understanding that you know, for example, when it's get a live action depiction of a character and they tokenize them, which is so stupid. But like Valkyrie, for example, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, she's played by Tessa Thompson, who is, I don't know if she's full black, she's light skinned, but she is obviously not white. This is freaking based off of Norse mythology. The fact that that person is, it doesn't even make sense. It's like basically, you know, having like a white Wakandan essentially is the same. It literally makes absolutely no sense for there to be non-white, let's say Asgardians, as they would be called, considering
right, because they're super blonde and Norwegian looking or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, Vikings.
That's where exactly. That's where it's based off of Norse mythology. That doesn't mean that you can't create an original black character. One that I've been screaming from the top mountaintops for them to not only utilize, but to finally do something with. They just did it. Like if you're watching WandaVision, you see Monica Rambeau.
Yes, I was just gonna ask you about that. Yeah, WandaVision was pretty slow going the first few episodes, but then it really kicked up, and I think she's a really good example of a character who has like a pretty organic, like I feel like, you know, they're setting up the origin story to be very believable, and it's like, I don't know, she's just so good that it's like I don't even care. I'm not even thinking about, you know, I know this sounds so dumb coming from like a white woman, but it's like I think her character's so good that I'm not even thinking about like, well, but that she's black or whatever.
That's the reason why that's so important that you mentioned that, and so worth mentioning, is because that's what separates a bad character from a good one. You know, I always talk about how people look at like white characters that have look caught on in the comic books. We've seen all these live action adaptations of them, and they like to pretend like, well, they caught on because they're white, and that couldn't be anything further from the truth when you consider white characters, particularly white male characters. They are the writers cannot fall back on a social wheel. They simply can't, which is unfortunately what they've done with women, female characters. They've done it with black characters. It's like, okay, well, you know that at some point they have to have this long extended arc where they struggle with their gender, where it's some sort of struggle with their race or something. Like they can't do that with straight white male characters. So
yeah, like you had said, I think,
as possible, they have to be, and that's why they stuck. They don't put that same sort of effort in. Some of them they do. But not for the most part. That's not what it's been. That's why you get so many palette swaps. That's why you get Miles Morales. Why you get them, because it's an easy thing to do. It's like, hey, it's a character that you guys recognize, and then we just race change them instead of developing them in a new original, whether it be with their power set, upbringing, all of that, just completely fresh and original. It's not a difficult thing. There's a lot of independent artists that do it every day that aren't connected to Marvel and DC. It's not a difficult thing to do. They just make it difficult, and that's why it's so frustrating for me, because you know probably better than I do, considering, you know, you're in comedy, but Hollywood doesn't do that by accident. When they take a character that has been traditionally white in the comics, we're seeing this about they already announced this with Constantine. They're doing I guess the DC Extended Universe is going to be using a different Constantine from the one that we've seen in like was it Legends of Tomorrow or whatever, as well as they're not obviously going to use Keanu or anything. So they are specifically looking, and they have announced what they're trying to cast someone that is a bi POC to play that character. And I tell people this whole, they got to retire this bull crap where they're like, well, maybe that person was the best person for the job.
Have you been to an audition? Exactly. Every audition I've ever been to, it's like, I've maybe once I was at a commercial audition where there was like other black chicks in the room, or like a mix or whatever, because it's like they were calling for just someone with improv comedy chops. But other auditions, it's all white chicks that look like me. Like I've never, you know, maybe I'm not, you know, going to all the auditions, but like I have never been to an audition where it looks like United Colors of Benetton. Like, and I don't think, they're always looking for a type. Yeah, exactly.
Always that. And that's what they do. It's like, do you fit the bill? Okay, cool. We want you come try out. That's how it works. That's how it works. And there's no such thing as, well, we're just going to say, hey, anybody that can be this character. No, that's not how they operate. They do it on purpose. They said so. We've seen this time and time again, definitely recently, even with the Black Canary that's in Birds of Prey movie, which was an absolute disaster. That wasn't an accident when they cast well, I can't remember Journey Smiley. I know it's Jesse's sister.
Is it really?
Yeah, no, it is. It's literally
Oh, wow.
Jessie Smiley. Yeah, she's Jessie Smiley's sister, and yeah, like so they cast her, and they were looking for that. They were looking for a biracial Black Canary. Like they didn't want her, and it's like, don't insult me by acting like I'm talking out of my behind, thinking that, knowing that that's what they're trying to do. It's everybody's, for whatever reason, it's just the industry. They're obsessed with this whole signaling, and it's like it's too much work to come up with an original Black character or an original female character for that matter. I mean, we've seen gender swaps of certain characters, which has happened, and we've seen it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Marvel, for example, in the Captain Marvel movie, is a woman for some reason. Like that doesn't make any sense. So they do stuff like that. It's not just racial line, it's gender as well, and it's nonsensical. It's lazy. And it's just, I know just too much creativity that's out there for them to be putting out that lazy garbage.
Yeah, and you look at like I remember watching the all-female reboot of Ghostbusters, and I was going like, ugh, why don't you take the same talented cast and put them in an original script? It's like they're not really doing the story justice. It's like everyone is like a much weaker version of their character. Like why not? It could be just as girl powery if you had them just doing something else. And it's like, do you think they're just trying to make money off comic book nerds and like wokies and leftists, or do you think it comes down to like a laziness issue?
I think it's both. Right now, unfortunately, everybody's an activist, and they feel like their work, even, which I'm like, whatever. If you're going to be an activist on your own time with your own creations, fine. But unfortunately, it's not what we're seeing right now. We're seeing people take characters and run them into the absolute ground, and it's like they're trying to appeal to the normies as well as like people that look, man. These people are weird, man. They make like freaking sock accounts based on like they follow me all the time, and they're always mad at me because I dared criticize one of their little characters, but they love that. They get off on that tokenization. they love to say. I remember seeing some post on Twitter, and it was like all of red. I don't know what Hollywood has against redheads, but like, you know, all like basically comic book redheads like have like all been like race change. It's bizarre. Like it's like when it's one, it's like okay, but when it's like 10 of them, and it's like why they keep race changing these redheads, but no, they were like, yeah, there was some new one, I forget the chick that's going to be Cyclone, yes, in the upcoming Black Adam movie with the Rock, of course, and Black Explainer, and there's another redhead out of there. And I remember like someone posted about it, yeah, we got her now, and it was like bragging basically about, okay, we're coming for another white character. Like they get off on that. And so those are the people that they're trying to appeal to, who for whatever reason just love to see, against the insecurity thing where they think they're winning something by seeing a Black version of a traditionally white character. So that's who they're trying to appeal to. And it sucks because you got guys like me, definitely creators in this space, who sit there and hype this work up. We cover all these books, and then the character shows up in like a live action setting, so it's more digestible for people that just simply don't want to read. And then it's like not the character at all. And it's like, wait, what is this? This isn't what I've been hyping up or something like that. But it's a lot of folks that are activists, and they feel like their work has to reflect that. And doing a character that they didn't create justice is simply, it's not in the realm of reality right now. And this is unfortunately why you see so much of not just the tokenism, it's just lazy, lousy work, and then they'll promote it as if, okay, like what they did with the Birds of Prey, which was terrible. They're sitting here like, hey,
I haven't seen it. Oh man, but I've heard things.
It's bad. It's bad, but it's like they're sitting here on the campaign trail, sitting here trying to lecture men who, you know, you think that would be like a big time comic, like it's a comic book at the end of the day. So you think that would be, you wouldn't want to insult, like, I don't know, half of your audience right there. But that's exactly what they were trying to do, saying, "Oh, this is going to talk about the misogyny," and like people ain't trying to see this, and they're not interested in this, and they obviously
it's already everywhere. It's like we
yeah.
go to the movies to get away from that garbage, and it's not real life. It's like it's a play. It's like I don't know. It's an act. I think it's so fascinating what you said before about like a lot of these, like let's say there's a white comic book character that you really know and love. Oh yeah, I was saying before, like when you see these live action movies, that there's no payoff, there's no reward for investing all this time as in being a fan all these years. So you're like, oh, what did I just like spend like 10 years being obsessed with? But like let's say there's a really great like character comic book character that you like, that's white, right? And then you see them, for some reason someone will like change out their gender or their race or whatever, like to be more like appealing or like woke or whatever. And you look at the person who wrote that character, and I think you mentioned on one of your previous videos that maybe that's they'll write these characters that are Black, and they all have, it's like what you said before, they like with women, the characters fall into this trope of like, oh, I'm always fighting my gender. And with Black characters, these characters are always come up from a bad neighborhood and they grew up on the wrong side of the tracks or whatever. It's like there's no diversity in that story. Do you think that the guys who write those characters, and like let's say that the same treatment is not given to like the white characters, do you think this is a racist thing, or do you think like that guy is just writing what he knows and he's not a woman, he's not a Black guy, so he doesn't know how to write that story? Or do you think it is like an unconsciously racist thing, or do you think just it's not a thing?
I think some of it's a little bit of both, but I do believe that there are people that don't understand what it is they're doing. So because they get thrilled. This is why there has been so much garbage that has been pumped out definitely in recent years by way of Black artists or comic book writers that are writing crap books, because that's all they figure, well, here it is, Black character, I absolutely have to go this route with it, and they don't and I think I guess it's a little bit of both, but I do think some of it, to be fair to them, is more unconscious, where they think that okay, this is just how it has to be, and it doesn't. Like, they're not thinking in the fact of why did these characters stick around, or why do these like straight white characters like the Batmans of the world, it's not just because they've been existing for decades for sure, that helps, but there's other characters that have popped off. Punisher wasn't around in the 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s, like that was a developed character, right? And Deadpool, like that was a word, developed characters that are more recent phenomenon. You look at Chris Claremont, all the amount of X-Men that popped up in the 80s, like this was not that long ago that were created that ended up sticking, and so many people liked them, but a lot of it was because they weren't trying to beat the audience over the head with this whole corny, predictable narrative of this person has to go through this nonsensical struggle with their race or something like that, or with their gender or something of that nature. Again, it's a creativity thing, where the reason why so much effort gets put into those white straight characters, and it's like they have these awesome stories, it's because they have no social ill. They can't be lazy. They literally cannot be lazy with some of those characters, whereas with some of these Black characters and some of these female characters, that's exactly the route that they go. And you're right in like the upbringing, even with the new Static, like they retcon Static, who they're bringing back Milestone Comics. So Static Shock was a big character when I was growing up, as far as because we saw the cartoon with Static Shock cartoon, but even with them, they're retconning him because they want him to be like a part of this. They want to modernize him. So he was in this protest and all this. Like, dude, like, why can't a Black character just be a lawyer? Like, why can't
why can't he be from Connecticut? And he's like, man, I gotta work on my golf swing.
Exactly. Like, why can't he just be that? Like, dude, we're not all Black people or all female or women. They're not dealing with these struggles like that, so they shouldn't have to feel as if they forced them to do that. But I think it's just activism is just controlling these people nowadays, and they feel like they absolutely have to take it among themselves, and you can't get away from. Cartoon Network is a crap show. We're talking about it today with Elijah. Absolute crap show in terms of what they're trying to put out there, propaganda. It's like these guys have no idea what they're doing, and these are people that are getting a part of these projects that simply want to use it as a way to advance their social preferences and their social views. It's not about the art first, and it's almost like instead of making work that people can't consume. It's more of like, okay, you need to be good enough to consume this, even though they didn't create half of this crap, but the ones they create are garbage as well. It's like, okay, you have to be good enough for this. It's like, I'm going to lecture you whether you want it or not. And it just makes for very, very bad art at the end of the day.
And were you talking about on Cartoon Network, or no, what was it? The little kids, they were basically, because when I was on doing Sarah's show, they played a little bit of this clip where it was basically like these cartoons that were like supposed to be talking to kids about race. And I'm like, kids are just like naturally, they don't care about race. Like they're just friends with who they're friends with. It's not till they get to be adults that, you know, it's this whole issue. Although, like, I mean, I always say I want to go back to the 90s when we weren't talking about this so much.
I was just literally talking about this with Elijah, about how there was a period of time where we was over that. Like, for real. Like, if you think
truly, yeah,
going into the 90s, into the early 2000s, like we weren't having these kind of crazy conversations, and people would consume. You think about all the vast amounts of media that came out that were like consumed by people that were black, white. It didn't matter. Nobody cared. It didn't matter if even the cast was all black, all white. Like I could watch, you know, Living Single, and then I could go watch, you know, Married with Children or something.
Yes.
Like it was like it was all good. And
I would watch Fresh Prince, Martin. Yeah. Like I was obsessed with In Living Color. Like
it was just good. It was just good.
It was just good.
It was just good, and we were over that. Like we were, for the most part, not to say that there weren't racist incidents or there weren't activists, no, but from a societal standpoint, we were for the most part over that hump. Something happened in the 2010s, and now it's like there's a Klansman around each and every corner or something like that, or there's someone that's going to do something evil, the evil white man trying to keep the women and the black folk down with everything, and everybody's at each other's throat, and it's like it feels manufactured, I guess, because it is. But man, we were over that hump. There's a cool video you could watch, your audience could watch. I don't know if they're gonna take it down. Knowing Disney, they would, but they were recording like reactions as well as like pre-show stuff when there was this was like in the 80s as well. So this was going into, was this when Return of the Jedi came out? Ooh. And they were filming people that were excited for it, obviously, before they went into the theaters. They filmed a little bit of people that were in theaters, and then afterwards was their whole like the big reveal and everything. And just to see, I was watching that video and I covered it on my show. It was like the vast amounts of people that were like, it was a different race. It was male, female, black people, white people that were talking and were just stoked. They're just absolutely stoked about good media. It wasn't that it was something that was relatable and people consumed, and it didn't matter. And it was such a beautiful thing for me to watch, just and view that through that spectrum, where they didn't have to beat anybody over the head with racism or anything. Yet everybody seemed to be that was into that was definitely into Star Wars. Just was like, oh, this is awesome, and you see people all together, and it was a very beautiful thing to watch. And I'm like, well, how do we move behind? Like, how do we move back?
We've devolved. Yeah, we've regressed. It does make it, the more you talk about it, the more it's like, yeah, this seems like very intentional to kind of like pit us against each other, and like the art suffers. Like we can do better than what we've been seeing. So I'm hoping that will be the trend of, I'm hoping like the 2020s. I want to know, what are your thoughts on Harry Shearer stopped voicing Dr. Hibbert on The Simpsons? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that he's just was going to retire anyway, and this is his sort of PR way to dip out on a high note?
On his way out. I think some of that is true, but it's enough of I guess, because that's happening. We're seeing a lot of that now. Certainly after the George Floyd thing happened. I don't know what that has to do with that situation, but for whatever reason, after that, you had all of these people that were voicing, like white people that were voicing non-white characters. And like they were like announcing that, okay, I'm no longer going to be voicing this character. There's a couple of more, like, I believe the guy that voiced Cleveland on Family Guy said he wasn't going to do Cleveland anymore.
And Hank Azaria stopped doing Apu.
Exactly. So I'm sitting here like, This is hilarious to me, mainly because look, it's voice acting at the end of the day, and the whole point of it's different from just like
Yeah.
you don't have to look the part. You don't have to look.
Yeah, that's why you're a voice actor.
Yeah, that's why you're a voice actor, not an actor, because you're trying. You don't have to look the part. You just have to sound like a believable character. So I have more leeway, of course, on that. That's not. I wouldn't generally consider that tokenism, but that's like the hilarious thing is like, wow, they sure don't do that with the live action stuff. I don't understand why they would do it with the voice acting, which the voice acting is particularly about the skill in your voice. It's merit based. It's about the skill in your voice. It doesn't really matter if you can sound like this character and make it believable, then you have talent. It's like Phil Lamar, who's voiced people from Samurai Jack to, he's a black guy, people Samurai Jack to whoever. He's just it's a Static Shock. We were just talking about it's a Static, and he's awesome, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's voice acting, right? You give more leeway. But man, if they would, I'd take that if they at least applied that to the live action stuff and the characters they depicted. Like, yeah, maybe okay, you want to keep the characters the same race, bet, but they don't apply that anywhere consistently. This is why. Yeah, it's a lot of people doing it right now, but I think some of it has to do with maybe what you're saying, and that people using it as this PR stunt. Like, look at me, I'm one of the good ones, which is kind of whack.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy, and you would never see like you would never see the reverse. Like you'd never see like a traditionally like black character. Like, well, let's switch it up and make him white. Like, are you seeing that? Yeah, I didn't think so. Like,
never. I don't know if that has ever happened in like, well, definitely in comic book media, which I focus most on. You don't see that. You almost never, and if it has happened, it's like once or twice. You know what I mean? But that hardly ever happens. So it's clearly slanted one way, and it's just so lousy and lazy, man. I can't say that enough. How lazy that is to sit up here. And it's, you know, it's little racing. Like, could you imagine a board? How does that look? Like you're sitting here, part of the production team, about to come up with this movie, and you're like, yeah, we're just gonna have this character there because they're black. Like, how does that conversation even work? Like, I'm like what was the like we just want a black person like that. It's literal racism, but you know, whatever. I mean, like it works. I mean, they don't seem to be insulted because people take these gigs and stuff like that. I would not, me personally, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. If I was offered a gig, not just even a tokenized gig, but a gig where I know just like you only are putting that there to basically boost your own ego. Like, I couldn't do that. But you know, people see a dollar, ain't nobody turning down no Marvel movie. They not. So I guess I get it.
Yeah, and it's like, you have a lot of knowledge about this. Like, where can people go? I mean, is there anywhere people can go, like, other than Marvel and like the mainstream live action films that they can see? Like, is there any good independent, like on a smaller scale? Are people producing their own?
Yeah, it does exist. I mean, you and I'm not talking about even like the bigger independent guys like the Image Comics, IDWs. They do like the Ninja Turtle stuff and all of that. Some of that stuff is out there, and of course it exists. Spawn, for example, is not a Marvel or DC property, and a lot of people are kind of into that. So it exists. A lot of independent stuff. That's what Milestone was. Milestone that was Static came from before DC licensed them. That came from a guys just wanting to create some original black characters, and that's what they did. So it's a lot of stuff out there. I think even more so right now, comic industry is in shambles right now. Like the actual like they're not making money. They're not selling like they used to, certainly, and it's not because things are digital or anything like that. It has nothing to do with it, because I know
it's not.
That has nothing to do with it. There are people like, and I talk about, you know, a guy by the name of Ethan Van Sciver, who used to write, who used to do a lot of artwork with Marvel. He's done with DC more so, but he did some work with Marvel as well, doing some of the X-Men stuff. And he and a bunch of other guys, you know, he, like, for example, he made $1 million off his cyber fraud comic, like as in like on Indiegogo, like literally it's a literal $1 million comic. Like, you know, he's made more money on that than he ever made writing, doing artwork for DC or Marvel. So there's a lot of people that are doing that. I think the industry right now, unfortunately, is trying to find a way, because the advantage of being with the Marvel and the DC, you can be a no name and be a part of these projects, and also the distribution and all of that, because comics is a big physical media. This is why I would never allow that to be an argument, because that's the whole media. Like the medium is collecting, you know what I mean? Like it's having the physical copies in your hand is what it's about. So that'll never go away.
It's like records. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's not gonna go away. It's just that a lot of the stories that are coming out are just bad. They're god awful. And a lot of people are coming up with creative stories on their own with original characters. So that stuff it exists out there. It's out there, and a lot of people are doing like Indiegogo campaigns. That's one of my next projects actually, is once I finish some of this tape stuff with the band, like I'm working on a comic book, like
Oh
this
wow, cool.
a lot of people are going to do, and they're going to make a lot of money off of not being connected to Marvel and DC. Will it compete? Look, that's going to be a very difficult thing to do with those with the big two, but there is a lot of good. If you are a comic book guy or a person that's interested in something outside of Marvel and DC, there is some work out there that you can go look at. And it's some good stuff. It's not like some of it, not good, but a lot of it, there's some good stuff out there, good work, because a lot of these guys came from that. Like I said, with Ethan and a lot of the guys that he rolls with, they do shows every week and stuff like that, live streams. And a lot of them are previous writers, like Shane Davis is another guy's artist. Used to do stuff with DC and Marvel. Like he's an incredible artist. Like these are guys that were in the industry, understood that it's absolutely destroyed, and they're making way more money now doing independent work than they ever were gonna make with DC and Marvel. It just you don't get the benefit of just not having your book sell. You know what I mean? Like you would if you worked for Marvel and DC, because they're just commissioning you to write or do the artwork or the ink or whatever.
What would you like to see Marvel and DC do, or stories to focus on? Or would you just, prefer to see them kind of be toppled over by more independent folks?
Yeah. See, and this is the advantage that a lot of these guys got. And yes, a lot of these leftists have taken control of the arts and running some of this stuff into the ground, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we grew up on this stuff. A lot of us, people older than me, they grew up on this stuff, and you hate to see something like that just go to the crapper. So I would love to see that it get in a competitive state to where it's actually putting out good work. Do I see that happening? Probably not. I think they're going to have to get hit in the pockets with more of an economic incentive to stop doing that. And again, they benefit a lot from the fact that a lot of folks have clings to this material because they grew up on it, right? This is why these guys often they don't generally do that with their own characters, because they can't because it's not going to get off the ground. Nobody's asking for that. So what they will do is infiltrate and then use those characters that we are all familiar with, like people having their issues with Star Wars, Star Trek, the Marvel, DCs of the world, that we're seeing all of this bull crap, definitely with this social justice emphasis that they're advocating. Like it's becoming a problem, and it's interfering with the actual art. And we have clings to those properties. So that's the advantage that they have, whereas the people have to create original stuff. See, the way I look at it is, I think that there will be, well, maybe this is me being a little more optimistic, but maybe one way to get them back on track would be something like that. The internet has allowed us to do a lot of creative things. So maybe something happens, like cool thing maybe happens where my comic pops off. It does really good. It's really, really successful. Somebody wants to invest, do a animated cartoon or a live action depiction of it. And like The Boys, for example. The Boys is
yes. So good.
Yeah, that's another example of a non-Marvel, non-DC property that was based off a comic book. And now it has a lot. So maybe we will see stuff like that happen that'll compete with them, that people are just begging for right now because the media right now is so bad. And that will force the hand of the Marvel and the DCs of the world to say, okay, clearly this is like we have competitors now, and maybe people aren't going to them as much. We'll see. That will take some time to do, but I would hate to see them just go away. The Disney thing does not seem to be like that was ever a good idea for Disney to get control of Marvel. That seemed like that was a recipe for disaster. And to be fair, some people called that. Some people said once that happened, like this was going to be, they were going to run this into the ground. And it seems like that's exactly what they're hell bent on doing, despite the Marvel Cinematic Universe being as big as it is. But certainly with the books, that's what they're doing. So I would hate to see them toppled, but I do think independence right now is a very valuable thing and is a necessary thing. Not to just get them on board, or rather to change, let's say, the big two, but a lot of folks are being able to make careers on their own. And I love to see decentralized forms of media. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and that's what's happening with our news now. People are like less about mainstream media or legacy media, but it's like, yeah, they're watching the Blaze, they're watching Tim Pool, it's great. Like I have so many days where I don't even turn on my actual TV. So I would love to see that happen with the arts as well. And it's like, yeah, if you're going to tug on people's nostalgia, like do right by them. Cause it's like, you have them hooked. They're going to go see it. Cause they it reminds you of like growing up, being a kid. So it's a little bit of it's almost like they're taking advantage of that.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's perfect. That's exactly what it is that they're doing. That's why, again, they don't do that with original work. They have to surround it with something that people are already familiar with, and that's how they get them. And that's what the advantage that a lot of them have is simply just they got control of the characters that people know and love, or the franchises that people know and love and grew up on, which didn't get that way by way of like overemphasizing or hyper-emphasizing social justice. It was just good work, good material, and people liked it or they didn't like it. And it didn't matter what race or gender or not. It's like, for me, a comic book guy to sit up here and listen to people act like I got a problem with like female characters or some stupid stuff like that. It's like, dude, if you only knew the half of me, hell, even on my wall, all these female characters that I have just hanging up in my backdrop is just
look at your Power Rangers shirt. There's the pink exactly. Power Ranger is right there.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
And the yellow one. Yeah.
Like it's like, dude, we will consume. If it's good stuff, it's good stuff. People are consuming. You don't have to beat us over the head like I'm a woman. That's why Batwoman, for example, is absolute dog crap right now, because that's the hybrid. Supergirl made that exact same mistake. It's like, okay, we get it. We understand this is a woman, or we understand this character's gay. That's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to beat your audience with over the head. That's not necessary. If the character's good, they'll like them. Like I talk about Wonder Woman, Storm, Misty, like all these characters.
The ambiguously gay duo. Come on, do something with those guys.
Exactly.
I would watch that movie.
If it's good media, they'll consume it, man. And that's all people should be focusing on. If you are an aspiring creator that wants to be in this space, just make good media. You can have a black character, you can have a gay. I think out of spite, that's one of my aspirations, to make a gay character better than they can, because they have no idea what it is that they're doing. But yet, if we criticize some sort of tokenization, for example, like, I don't know if you know, speaking of Guardians, the character that Chris Pratt plays now all of a sudden is bisexual. Like they it's not bisexual for some reason. And we say this is the dumbest thing considering his upbringing. Like, this is the dumbest thing you could have did. And they say, oh, well, you're bigots. And it's like, dude, no, that's not what people are griping about. It's not that people have problems with gay characters or black characters or female characters. No, you're doing it for brownie points, and it's not authentic, and it's just so lousy.
It is. I agree 100%. Eric, this is so great. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Where can people find you, follow you, check out your shows?
Yes, I'm live usually at 12 p.m. Central over at YouTube. My YouTube is youtube.com/YoungRippa59. That's RIPPA, the number 5 and the number 9. On YouTube. My work is everywhere. AirDJLive.com if you want to get some more information on everything it is. And the band, BackWordz, BackWordz is the name of the band. You can find us on all major digital platforms, as well as all our music videos are live on YouTube and whatnot. But I'm live everywhere over at YouTube, and you can catch the show For Canon's Sake. Listen to it live at 12 p.m. or if you want, you can listen to it after the fact on all major digital platforms, as well as forcanonsake.com.
The multi-talented Eric D. July. I'm looking forward to your rainbow-colored Power Ranger character.
Yes, I've made my decision. I'm going to make that happen. I'm going to be better at them than they do. Again, I appreciate you having me on as well.
Well, this was great, Eric. All right, I'll see you next time. Maybe I'll see you next time I'm in Texas.
Let's do it.